Football, a dangerous game, leads to a lot of injuries. We talked about Keaton Mitchell's injury. One of the things the NFL has done this year has implemented the hip drop tackle ban, and technically it's the swivel hip drop tackle. You can still do a hip drop tackle, you just can't do a swivel. I just wish they would have done the whole thing and make it easier for everyone. Anyway, here's John Harbaugh, who saw his top tight end go down on a Thursday night this past year because of a hip drop tackle that at one point they said would be illegal, then that said be illegal. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows how it's going to play out? But here's Harbaugh on the mere fact that the NFL decided to take that weapon out of a defensive player's arsenal.
As far as the hip drop tackle, the challenge of tackling, I don't even understand the question. I mean, the hip drop tackle, when did you ever hear about the hip drop tackle until like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? That's because it was discovered probably in rugby and started being executed as a standalone technique. It's a three-part movement. You've got to execute that play. You've got to be close enough to that ball carrier to actually get him around the hips, all right? Pull him close to yourself, swing your hips through, and drop on the back of his legs. If you're that close, wrap him up and tackle him and take him to the ground like Ray used to do, and everybody did for 100 years before that. But you're talking about a tackle that the ball carrier has no method of escape from. He can't escape. So when you drop down on the back of his legs, it's a mass, and it's 25 times more likely to have a serious injury. So it's really a bad play, and it needed to be out. And guys are going to tackle just fine without the quote-unquote hip drop tackle, because they tackled just fine without it for 100 years of football before that when you never saw it, really.
He's right, but in those 100 years of football, at least for most of them, you could use your head in ways that you can't now. And I think this is just part of the evolution, and this is one of the consequences of taking the head out of the game. You push people toward other strategies for getting a ball player onto the ground, and this is one, that's popped up in recent years that I don't know that anybody ever coached it. Players saw it. They started doing it. The league spotted it while trying to figure out why there was an uptick in high ankle sprains. They're like, we got to do something about this. But I think this is just one of the organic byproducts of taking the helmet out of the game. And I agree with what John Harbaugh is saying. It's still going to be hard to spot the difference between, a hip drop tackle without the swivel and with the swivel.
It's not going to be hard. They've confused it. We're going to still see it. We're going to know it. We're right on every one we said was a hip drop tackle. We're right. It won't be. We got it. We do. They confused it a little bit.
Why
with
was
their
Mark
language.
Andrews not? I mean, the Bengals were sure to tell us the day they passed the rule, and we used a photo of the Mark Andrews play, and it was Bengals linebacker Logan Wilson, that the Bengals reached out to us both here and at the league meeting. Shireen Williams heard from him, and I did too. That's not an illegal tackle. It wasn't part of the montage of plays they showed. And then by the next day, the league says, yes, that would be an illegal hip drop tackle. So, I don't know where the swivel is there. It's all happening so fast. And this gets back to the point that we made a couple of weeks ago. I don't think there's going to be a ton of flags on these. I think we're going to have guys get fined after the fact. I think it's going to be hard for the officials to see all the elements clearly enough to throw the flag. This is going to be guys get fined. But the problem is the possibility of the flag is going to be there in a key moment, and it's just another way that games can end up being officiated inconsistently. That's the big concern I have about this.
Well, yeah. Now, listen, we discussed this. This is one of the tougher ones. This was not one of the most obvious ones out there. I think the obvious ones that we saw last year, right? I think they will get flagged, right? I expect that. I hear you with the head thing. But this is something like John echoed a thing that I was saying during the whole thing. Like, the adjustment's not going to be that hard. This was nobody tackled like this 7 years ago. It's a copycat league, and it was started by smaller defensive players who started to go, wait, I can't tackle this guy, so I'm just going to hog tie him and break his damn legs, and he'll go down that way, and I won't get a bad grade for a missed tackle. The head doesn't even have anything to do with this one, Mike, just because you're behind and grabbing anyways, right? It's like he said, it never was a thing. In the old days, we wrapped him up and we just fell and, hey, we tackled him. And then, like we heard Devin McCourty explain and other guys explain, we saw one or two guys do it, and all of a sudden we said, hey, let's wrap him up and throw our legs on top of his legs, and it's a guaranteed tackle. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, I'm Devin McCourty. I weigh 198 pounds, but I can take down Derrick Henry at 245 when I do this kind of tackle, right? So that's where I think it became its own thing, and it caught on fire. And like we always say, it's a copycat league. One DB sees it, a linebacker sees it. Ooh, wait, this guy on my team does it. Damn, I'm going to start doing that. Guy goes down every time, and I don't blame him or fault them for that. But yes, in the basic world of football, this was never a thing until 4 or 5 years ago. And that's where we just got to keep preaching that to the defensive players so they'll adjust and not be angry that it's being taken away.
I just hope that we don't get officiating controversies over obvious hip drop tackles that aren't flagged, and the official says to the full reporter after the game, I didn't see all the elements, and they say if we don't see all the elements, don't throw the flag. You know, the opposite of the when in doubt,
I hear
out
you.
for roughing the passer. You know, we want you to see all the elements, and I've already gotten the gist of that through the comments of guys like Rich McKay. We want him to see all the elements, so you just don't throw it until that key moment in a playoff game.
Well, that's what's going to piss people off.
You throw it.
Right.
I saw all the elements.
Right.
Well, why'd you throw it here, and why didn't you throw it there?
Right.
It introduces another way for the officials to be inconsistent in a way that because we don't have the full transparency like the UFL has, it's going to make people think that things are rigged. So we're going to have to deal with all those complaints while the NFL sits around acting like, well, we don't know anything. Nobody says anything to us. We don't have any sense that people think their fix is in. No, because you're not out on the front lines listening to it all the time. We're on the front lines all the time hearing from these people when they think the fix is in. And this is just another way for the fix to be perceived to be in. That's the risk they're taking.
No, you're right about that. Right.
The safety side of it, I don't like what they're setting up, this possibility of another area for people to say, see, the fix is in.
Yeah, no, listen, it's very real. I'm with you, Mike. You're right. I mean, it's going to piss people off, all right? Sorry, Liverpool, when, like Kansas City hip drops tackles a guy on the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. It doesn't get called, and now Kansas City drives down, and a Ravens guy does the same tackle, and it does get called, or does, the opposite of whatever happened before, and people are going to go, what the hell? It was the same tackle. Why did this one get flagged, and my team now had to kick a field goal because of it, and you didn't flag this one, and now the other team is, going to score a touchdown, whatever, right? So that's where definitely it's a little scary. It brings me back to the whole quarterback, getting hit in the head thing. Right? It goes back to the 2018 AFC Championship game. There was like 5 clips of Mahomes being hit in the head. They didn't call it. Brady got hit in the chest, and it kind of looked like it, and he got hit like this, and they called it on a 3rd and 14 late in the game, where you're like, man, if they don't get the first down here, the game might be over. And they got a free pass because of what you're talking about right there. So I hear you there, and that'll definitely, they've got to be very diligent and careful with this.
The NFL was forced in 2009, 2010 to get serious about player health and safety, and they have. At some point, the NFL is going to be forced to get serious about officiating, consistency, accuracy, the investment necessary to improve it. It's all going to come from one of these gambling scandals. That's why we point out the Shohei Ohtani thing, the issue in the NBA a couple of weeks ago. One of these gambling scandals is going to get some legislative or judicial or executive branch up their butts, and they're going to have that same epiphany that they had 15 years ago as it relates to health and safety. They're going to have it as the gambling, and we're just going to have to wait for it to happen, and then it's going to get better, and then they'll spend the money, and the calls will get more consistent, and we'll have fewer of these examples that just drive people absolutely crazy. All right, let's take a break. There was one more thing I was thinking of, though. Damn it. Oh, I know, and this is very important. I'm glad I remembered. The show could not have been complete if I didn't make this observation. You said that word that starts with P and ends with is earlier. I'm told yesterday that when I said it, it was indeed dumped from the Sky Sports Action version of the program, which is still not live, even though the other show about football is off for I think 5 months. And that hole's there. We could be live. I think the reason we're not is because they know. They've had to put the warning on the screen, strong language on this program, that PROGRAMME, that neat way of spelling it, so they dumped the P word. Now, if I would have said that other word that they say all the time, that word that we find shocking and repugnant, and they just throw it around all the time, they probably would have dumped that. But I prefer not to be, dumped from NBC, so I'm not going to let that one fly. But you said the P word again, so we'll see if we get dumped again for a word that we say here all the time and don't think twice of. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.